So I spent 2 weeks over in Switzerland and I've just arrived back home. Now have to get in front of the camera again and talk about watches and wonders. What were some of the best watches from show that were collectively loved by many there, as well as some of the watches that were very polarizing on the ground. So looking at some of the best, as well as some of the most controversial watches that left people split on both sides. So we're gonna be going through all of the different ranges of price, given that Watches and Wonders is a luxury event. Some of the watches we're gonna be talking about here are going to skew to the more aspirational end of things, and the entry point maybe not going to be the regular type of entry point that we talk about. We're gonna try to cover as much as we can, things that caught my eye, and then just some of the talking points that I noticed when being on the ground. So before we go through our list, we do have 2 events coming up I wanna make you guys aware of if you wanna partake in them. One will be in May for Oris. We'll have a complete takeover of our store outside with the Airstream that they're gonna be parking outside of our store. It's gonna be a great day from 12 to 5. If you wanna take part in that, fill out the form down below. We'll also have some rarer and less seen pieces by Oris. I will be there as well. Should be a great get together. Also in June, this is one of our larger scale event, if not our largest scale event of the year. This is with Grand Seiko. We did something last year. We rented out a space right by our store, but we had programming all throughout the day. We'll have panel discussions, Joe Kirk will do a presentation, and we'll also have live assembly of the new UFA caliber. So if you wanna be one of the first in the world to see how this is done, we will have an artisan from the Shinshu Watch Studio coming in and doing that live. If you wanna take part in the day, it's gonna be a fantastic one, extravaganza at that. It's not really even an event. We have over 500 people that we are able to have come to this event, but still limited capacity. If you are interested, fill out the form down below to express your interest. So let's kick things off looking at some of the best in show and watches that really stood out, I think just both from myself, but also from the general industry and also for our team here. So we had 9 people on our squad that showed up at the show this year. So wanted to talk with everybody, get a sense of what we all liked, but a lot of these are my opinions here and really what stood out to me. My personal favorite from show, regardless of price, what was delivered and how it was positioned, I think it has to be this one. This is the Nomos Club Sport Neomatic World Timer. Nomos last year, they came out with those 31 different models that were using the Tangenta platform. Now this year, they're unveiling a new watch, at least in this framework. They have the Club Sport, which is existing, the Neomatic has existed, but a world timer. They've sampled with this in the past. Something that people will probably bring up is the Zurich world timer, but what they've been able to do here is to shift the caliber. This is containing the DUW 3202 caliber, a new movement from the brand, and this has allowed this watch to be reworked and to be thinner than what they were doing previously with the Zurich world timer. So the movement itself is 4.8 millimeters thick, and they are now integrating the complication of the world timer within the gear train, so it's on the same plane, which is fantastic for the thickness. So the total thickness 4.8, so that's a millimeter thinner than the caliber 5201 that you find in the Zurich world timer. But beyond that, you have 8 different references to choose from. You have 2 standard production models that I really like. This silver dial with some blue accents and some red color as well. And then you also have a blue sunray finish type of dial. Looks fantastic at 40 millimeters for the case. But then in addition to that, you have 6 limited edition models with different colorways that are all just fantastic. And I thought these just made such an impression at the show. You're getting 100 meters of water resistance despite having that pusher on the side of the case that's going to engage the hour disc on the outside, or the city disc, I should say, and having that local hour function at the center. You're also going to have that 24-hour ring on the 3 o'clock side of the dial, 40 millimeters in diameter, 48 millimeters lug to lug, and a thickness of 9.9 millimeters. What Nomos mentioned in the meeting, and I have to cross-check this, but this is just what they stated, at their research at the time of releasing this watch, they found that this was the thinnest world timer currently on the market. I'd have to cross-check that, but nothing is just jumping at the top of my mind. Regardless, wears fantastic. Love the colors, under $5,000. This was one of the stars of the show, if not my favorite from the show entirely. This next piece is a bit of a sleeper, a little bit more expensive, but really made an impression on me for a variety of reasons when I saw it at the show. This is the Chopard Alpine Eagle 41 SL Cadence 8H That's a mouthful, but let's talk about why this watch made an impression. First, the case material. This is ceramized titanium. So you're basically getting the best of both worlds of titanium and ceramic in one package. The muted tones of what is being brought forth by the case and how it looks with a pop of color of orange, it really does work cohesively as an overall package. 41 millimeters for the diameter, 9.75 on thickness, and lug to lug of 45.7 millimeters. This one comes also with some cool different attachments for straps, which I think really works with some sporty upside. But the star of the show here has to be the movement. This is the 01.14-C. This is going to be a caliber that operates at 8 hertz. And if you are familiar with calibers, that is basically double the rate of conventional watch movements nowadays that operate at 4 hertz. So for this movement, you're getting 16 beats per second. And how they're able to do this is a small balance wheel that is operating very quickly. It's an unbelievable pace if you turn this watch around and you're able to see that balance. It's very small to keep the mass low so it can keep up that rate without draining the supply of energy. How they're able to maintain this is pretty remarkable considering this is coming off of a single barrel and you're getting over 60 hours of power reserve off of that single barrel at this rate. It's also COSC certified, beautiful looking watch, very easy to wear, lightweight on the wrist, but the caliber is the star of the show. You look at the second hand on this watch too when you saw it in person, and it just beat along like it was almost like an electrical powered watch, like a spring drive or something of that sort, but that just goes to show very few brands are playing in this tier of high frequency. So I just mentioned spring drive, and we sure did get a new spring drive this year. The best spring drive ever. Honestly, this is the new UFA. This is the SLG B003. So there are 2 different models that were made available. I'm focusing on the titanium version that's priced under $11,000. But what is new about this watch? It basically checks off the boxes of pretty much everything that people were asking for of a spring drive. Some complaints came with just spring drives being a little bit larger compared to some of the mechanical offerings from Grand Seiko. So when are we gonna see a smaller spring drive movement available? Now we have it. So this is coming in at a 37 millimeter diameter form factor and also very thin, 11.4 millimeters at that. So a lot of possibilities for the future. Then you're getting accuracy. No one really asked for accuracy improvements for a spring drive, but this is 20 seconds a year with this new 9RB2 caliber on the inside. That is 0.05 seconds a day if you're gonna do the math at home. So that's more accurate over 2 months than a superlative chronometer is going to be in a single day. So remarkable performance. And then this is also going to be the introduction of on-the-fly adjustment. So you have inside the clasp on this watch, 3 points, 2 millimeters each of micro adjustment, very easy to use. So it basically answers all of the requests, I think, for so many people that love Grand Seiko. This is gonna be a watch that's going to get a lot of people over the edge to look at this brand differently, and also this watch specifically. They're calling this dial their ice forest pattern, very attractive. Subtle blue hints in this dial version. The platinum version, which is very limited, is going to have more of this vibrant blue, light blue effect to the dial. Case is made of high intensity titanium, but just a beautiful watch, answers on all the specifications I think many Grand Seiko lovers were looking for, and those that were maybe on the outside but want to become part of the club. This watch absolutely has to be the star of the show, just transforming accuracy from a brand that was already at the front cutting edge of accuracy to begin with. So now let's talk some Rolex pieces. I want to save the Land-Dweller for the end because I think that's probably been one of the more controversial talking points throughout the show. Many people were divided about that. So I'll share more of my thoughts on that one towards the end. But 2 watches that I absolutely loved, and I think just collectively speaking, I think landed for many people on our team, but also people on the ground. This was the Rolex 1908 with a new bracelet. Now the 1908 is not going to be a commercial product that's going to be leading the charge for Rolex, but I do think that having the bracelet option available makes this watch way more compelling. And I think it also makes more sense when you consider the price and positioning compared to just the leather strap option and what you're getting on the surface. I think if you get a Rolex, you want some element of ability to state that you have spent this money on a Rolex. And the 1908 was so understated by comparison for the amount of money that you were spending. I think this might land for certain people. And I also just think it was incredibly comfortable. Like the bracelet itself was fantastic. It's a 7-link design. They're calling this their Settimo bracelet. So this is 7 links, very beautiful, drapes to the wrist. Love how this looks with the yellow gold and the white dial. This configuration was just simply beautiful to try on. You have a 39mm case, conventional for the 1908, 9.5 millimeters in thickness, water resistance of 50 meters. On the inside, the automatic 7140. This is also available to be seen on the reverse side. Superlative chronometer, also getting a Soloxy hairspring, which was one of the new talking points at the show. More people familiar with the Soloxy hairspring and what it has brought to the table. Now, $35,000 is certainly not an insignificant amount of money, and even for Rolex standard, that's a lot of money. But when I tried this watch on for the first time, and this was like a jet-lagged week, it was hard for me to really retain as much information as I typically do because of just the disorienting nature of being within this show with no windows, in there for 12 to 15-hour days. But I remember putting this one on and really, really liking it. Also, a quick mention of the new Oyster Perpetuals. This is not groundbreaking stuff that you're getting here, but we did get some new dial colors in the Oyster Perpetual range. My personal favorite was probably the beige. I love the pistachio. I love just the pistachio green type of color. I will refer to the Breitling B09 pistachio. I'm an owner of that watch, so I'm walking the talk there and talking the walk, whatever you want to say there. I absolutely love this color and this shade, and it was just a sneaky good watch for what you were seeing all across the show, especially for the price range that you're looking at. For 41mm version of the Oyster Perpetual, those are running at like $6,500 nowadays. Very easy to wear this in pretty much any environment, but the beige, to me, that was the sleeper. It was just sneaky good. Put this on the wrist, love the way this one looked. I think that just was more understated in the metal than it was in some of the press imagery. But I really like how this one wore, enjoyed it a lot, looked fantastic in person. So I think every year of the last like 3 years, I have mentioned this brand and they just haven't missed yet. I just adore what this brand has been doing. I love their design. I love the philosophy. It's so understated and this kind of quiet luxury and not being overly ostentatious with what they do. It just speaks to me. Now this is Parmigiani. This is the Tana PF GMT Rattrapant. I have talked about this a lot. We have a new green-blue dial color inspired by a Swiss valley down in the southeast or Italian-speaking area of the country. Beautiful in its looks. Still, again, not going to be so in your face with the green. It's just like a mild blue-green color. Definitely different than the first GMT Rattrapant that was unveiled a few years ago. 40mm case, 10.8 millimeters in thickness, 45.7 millimeter lug to lug, and getting 60 meters of water resistance. And on the inside, you have the automatic PF 051. This is the movement that allows that crazy feature of having that adjustment on the left lug. You can press a button and can advance forward an hour hand, and then once landing, you can then hide the hour hand back into a resting position where they're both stacked on top of one another. So this is just basically having the ability to have an additional time zone to be tracked when you need it, but when you don't want to have that tracking going on, you can just simply press that button within the crown, and it's this sleeper functionality that I love about this brand, and it matches the overall styling perspective that I think they bring forth with their looks and their feel from the aesthetic standpoint. And then one other watch from Parmigiani that I loved, similar in philosophy when it comes to showcasing only what is required, not overly cluttering a dial. This is the new Toric Perpetual. This is just simplicity personified. And it's hard to do that when you're talking about a perpetual calendar. You have two subdials, two hands on each one of those subdials. One side is going to indicate the days and the date, and then on the other side, you have the month and then the leap year indication on the opposite side. Perfect symmetry, beautiful, understated elegance throughout the rest of the format. The movement is also beautiful. Certainly not an inexpensive watch, but a beautiful one at that. Now jumping back down to more of an attainable point of view, we have the new Oris Big Crown pointer dates. Like these a lot. I have always been a huge fan of the Big Crown pointer date. That is my favorite collection from Oris. I like how they're going to, at least from my understanding, keep the existing cathedral hands. It's not like this is going to replace the cathedral hand models, at least from my current understanding. This is just in addition to. I think as you look at the Big Crown pointer date, those are watches that are able to be that everyday style. But what if you want something more contemporary contemporary in looks. You maybe don't like the classical designs of the cathedral handset, that coin edge bezel. You want something more youthful, maybe something more playful, but also can do the job in a variety of environments. Now you do have two different pillars that you can look at here. You have the Sellita powered calibers that are going to be priced just over $2,000, $2,300 to be exact, now coming on new updated bracelets as well. And then you have these small seconds with the caliber 403 also coming with bracelet options to go along with it. 40 millimeter case for the Sellita powered versions. You have a 12 millimeter thickness, lug to lug of 47.5 millimeters. So nice sweet spot there for sizing, 50 meters of water resistance, and 3 different dial colors to choose from on those Sellita versions. You have this like bluish purple type of plum color, then you have a vibrant blue color to choose from, and then this striking yellow, which maybe does struggle a little bit in the contrast department and being able to have some legibility. But in terms of seeing these in a lineup, that was the one that visually was where my eyes were going to first, just because it does work. And with these large like lume blocks for the markers, it is definitely different compared to the conventional big crown pointer dates that we've become used to. So now we shift to Patek Philippe, and a surprise for me was the Cubitus models at 40 millimeters. I like those more than I thought I was going to, but I'm gonna go for more classic Patek Philippe here, looking at the Calatrava 6196P, so a platinum dial. This is a dial color I would call like a salmon or a copper. Patek is calling it a rose gilt opaline type of dial, which yes, that is definitely a way to classify it, but it's just simply beautiful. You also have these contrasting darkened anthracite white gold, sharp cut hour markers, highly faceted. You get this high contrast as an end result because of it. Platinum case with that conventional marker of diamond being at that 6 o'clock position to let you know that it is a platinum case. Beautiful, elegant, love this configuration in platinum. Now for this next watch, it's not that this was, when you're thinking about the spectrum, best is relative to what you're working in within a price and positioning. And I think given the lack of focus under $2,000 from this show, you have to take all of that as points of context when trying to make a list like this. But this was one of these watches that just was sneaky. You didn't expect it coming, and I think it looked great when you tried it on. It was one of the highlights for me in this price and positioning from the show because there was not much here. This is the Alpina Tropic Proof hand winding. So this is a small 1960s styled watch, classic looks, classic logo, 34 millimeters to match the rest of the theme here, 9.25 millimeters in thickness. So more of this traditional looks, traditional wear. If you like vintage wearing proportions with this very stark white dial, has subtle gloss to it as well. Loved the way this one looked, caught me off guard completely, and being priced under $2,000 from a brand that is all about these ultra aggressive, more extreme watches with like their Alpiners and the other pieces that they're bringing forth. This is a complete change of pace, and I really liked this one when we were going over to their booth. Now this watch wasn't groundbreaking either, but it was just the combination of these two ideas. When you have this vision of a reverso in your mind, you don't think about it on a bracelet. But once you see it on a bracelet, especially in pink gold, you're like, yeah, that's going to leave an impression. This is not changing the game in any way, but this is about things that caught my eye. I just love the beauty of, and this was one of those watches. This was the Reverso Tribute monophase small seconds, now on a Milanese bracelet. So not cheap watch, $41,300. You're getting more of this tribute medium-sized case. So this is 45.6 millimeters by 27.4 millimeters. I just adore the way the Reverso looks in this configuration with a bracelet. I'm a big bracelet guy in general. I tend to like my watches on bracelets more than straps. I used to not always be that way, but I've just come to appreciate just having the flexibility and just being able to grab and go something that can work with pretty much anything. And that's the beauty of a bracelet. This is a watch you don't conventionally think with that type of upside, but clearly can work. Also being able to size this very easily given the clasp system on this watch. This could be a really nice his and hers watch, or like a couple's watch if you did have the money to spend on this. Absolutely adore the way that this watch looks, and I think just seamlessly is able to incorporate a bracelet. So Lange has shifted its philosophy quite a bit at Watches and Wonders over the last few years. They've been very focused at times, looking at only one watch, and being a brand that doesn't produce a large number of watches, that makes sense that they wouldn't go crazy in just spray and pray. That's never been a part of their DNA. But this was one of several watches, or a few watches I should say, that were released at the show, but this was the one that left the largest impression. This is the Honey Gold Odysseus. Now Honey Gold is Lange's proprietary gold alloy, and it has a few things that allow it to separate from other golds. You talk about this concept of gold being more of this flashy material and really catching the eye. Lange always wants to uphold this level of not being so in your face and being more understated. That seems to be one of the words of the day and what attracted me at this show, where there's so much opulence and so much of trying to get your attention. The watches that really attract me are the ones that aren't just screaming in your face to grab your attention. And that's why this Honey Gold I think is so beautiful. It's an alloy that's going to increase the hardness, but it doesn't have the traditional shimmer and shine that come with gold that is going to really pop off the wrist. This also being combined with this brown earthy tone dial, I think just works so well. It's almost seamless in how it's able to transition. And with the bracelet, which Honey Gold bracelet, that's a big note for Lange. To see that combination, just loved it. Limited to 100 pieces. The brown dial choice I think was a fantastic one at that. Works so well with the tones of the Honey Gold case. So at FC's booth, I was able to see a little bit farther into the future outside of this watch, and just want to give a teaser that things that they have coming out later this year look awesome. This brand has completely shifted its position and how it's being perceived in the market, and for good reason. I think it's starting with product and being very good value for money. This is an example of that, and this is one of the watches that is currently available, and I just think is a very attractive watch. And for perpetual calendar, manufactured perpetual calendar made in Switzerland, it's pretty much unbeatable for its value and position. This is the classic perpetual calendar. This is at around $10,000. So now you have a new salmon type of dial, mild sun ray type of pattern on that dial, but an in-house manufacturer perpetual calendar coming from Switzerland, 72 hours of power reserve. For $10,000, this is absurd to see a watch of this caliber, of this complication type. Very nicely cut applied markers set to the dial. You have day, date, month, leap year cycle, as well as the moon phase being positioned at that 6 o'clock position, offering symmetry and some nice contrast to the salmon or copper dial. So Tudor seems to also be changing its approach to Watches and Wonders. It used to be the only place that they were releasing watches throughout the year, but now it's really changing. They're now doing less for Watches and Wonders and having bigger drops throughout the year. Even at their booth, they had an announcement that they're going to come out with another watch in May. So I don't think they're showing their full hand, but they did still have a couple highlights. I did like the Pelagos Ultra, especially the cool feature of having the on-the-fly adjustment in the clasp, but with a luminous marker. Not sure I've ever seen that before, so a nice little add in the details that I thought was interesting. But my personal favorite, and I think probably one that commercially is going to be probably the best seller for the brand for this cycle of releases for Watches and Wonders, is going to be the new 58 all burgundy. I'll call this one the all burgundy here. Burgundy dial, burgundy bezel. We've seen burgundy. This has been part of the Black Bay DNA since it was unveiled in 2012, but now we're seeing with a burgundy dial and burgundy bezel. This is not necessarily a new concept. There was actually a prototype watch from Tudor in the 1990s that was the inspiration for this design, and I was able to see that last year when we were going through their archive. Now I'm recognizing that that was a teaser basically of what was to come, and I had no idea, but connecting the dots now. 39 millimeters, so a familiar case size, but now this is coming with a master chronometer certification. Last year we saw the 58 GMT getting the master chronometer certification, so to see a three-hander now starting to move things forward, that is great to see. More indication that Tudor is doubling down on master chronometer certifications. Striking dial, striking way that this all combines together. Also some subtle updates with the bezel. You're going to see finer teeth on those, a little bit more reflection, and also higher faceting on the crown as well, seeing a bit more of an elevation in the presentation compared to something like I have on my wrist right now, the 58 Navy. This is also now available on a 5-link, which I really like the look of in combination. Probably my favorite of all of the different bracelet options from Tudor, also coming with T-Fit as well. And then for my final of best in show, absolutely love this watch. This is the new caliber 135, the GFJ edition, honoring the founder of Zenith, Georges Favre-Jacot. So this is going to be the return to the caliber 135. This was a watch or caliber in the 1950s that basically swept the competitions of chronometry in those early 1950s. One of the most accurate watches in the world throughout the 1950s. Had a very unique way of being able to regulate at the time, and at the observatory chronometer trials was a standout. Back in 2022, they released a collaboration with Kari Voutilainen using the caliber 135. This was more new old stock than it was building these calibers from the ground up. That is what's happening here. They went back, how could they modernize this movement that was so important to their history and position it beautifully in a watch? And they did exactly that. So you have a center lapis dial, you have then a mother of pearl plate for the small seconds, and then having this guilloche pattern motif on the outside. This is their brick motif, and if you've ever seen the Zenith manufacturer building, this is where you'll see that brick pattern being showcased on the outskirts of the dial with this guilloche pattern, but also on the bridge architecture on the back. The thing that caught my eye for this watch though is just the movement. The movement is beautiful to look at in the balance wheel. The balance wheel is basically half the diameter of the case. It almost goes all the way to the center of that movement. It's beautiful, it's a large mass, and that's why it's going to be oscillating at a much lower frequency. So this is a old school beat frequency at 2.5 hertz. This watch also apparently is available on a platinum bracelet, and if you know the story about platinum bracelets, they tend to be more expensive than the watches themselves. This is the case for this Zenith, and it's also the case for other brands like FP Journe, for example, that have made platinum bracelets. Not something that most brands want to get into because they are a pain to manufacture and finish to the standard that these brands are finishing them at. This is more of this fine link design. Beautiful, love it, one of my favorites from the show, and great to see Zenith returning to this caliber of watchmaking with the 135. So now we move on to some of the watches that were more polarizing, controversial, what had people talking on both the extreme sides of things, where you either loved it or maybe didn't love it or even hated some of these watches. Now to kick things off, we look at Grand Seiko. This is the new Tokyo Lion Tenograph. This is the SLGC 009. When I first saw this watch, I did not know what to think. I was not necessarily a fan of it immediately, but when you put it on, much better. But this was a piece that when you look at the press images and a lot of people were talking, it is very out there. Never seen a case as aggressive as this one personally. Definitely a little higher in price as well, but I think it was just the aesthetics of this design, much more daring for Grand Seiko. But you looked at what the UFA was and being very straight down the path compared to something like this, which is more unorthodox, very much showing its aggressive kind of Japanese light and shadow design and bringing that together. This is not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and some people just didn't really like this design, but others absolutely loved it. And when I put this on for the first time, I was surprised. You're still getting 200 meters of water resistance, a pretty big case at 43 millimeters, but the lug to lug with the faceting of the case, I can show a wrist shot on my wrist. Like, you guys tell me, I don't think it's that off. It wore way better than I was expecting it to, but certainly an acquired taste here, and I think threw some people off when they were looking at it. So another watch that certainly was not going to be to everybody's taste, and it seemed to be the year of this complication type, the jump hour. This is the Tank A Gachet. This is from Cartier. This looks back to a 1928 design, a jump hour model that has this large plate and open apertures in the case structure itself to showcase the hour and minutes that will be on a disc. So this is definitely a watch that is going to turn some heads when you first see it. Now, the reason why this was polarizing, and I think there were some split opinions on it, one is just the design. It's a bit more unorthodox, brutalist in its structure compared to what people commonly think of Cartier. But I think another aspect of Cartier this year that was interesting is they're now definitively the #2 in Swiss watchmaking for brand. So to be that level, you have to think about commercial product. They're a little bit different than many of the other brands in mechanical watchmaking because they have such strong history in the design for ladies' timepieces, and I think they dominate that sphere. But this was not a commercial product too. I mean, people saw this, they liked the concept potentially, but then they saw the prices of being excess of $47,000 to $60,000 in that range. And then I think there were more question marks about who is this exactly for? So I think just because this was almost seen as the hero product from the brand and it was unobtainable for so many people, I think there was a kind of conflicting interests that were happening here while on the ground, and when people were reacting to this piece like, hey, I really like the concept of this, but maybe the price positioning has me questioning why was there such a focus on this by comparison to some of the other models that maybe should have been seeing more of the spotlight. They did come out with some new Santos and some medium case formats that I think were very nice. Also Santos Dumont, some different flavors on that front. But this was the product that was really championed as the hero for the brand, but definitely obscure and acquired taste for a brand like Cartier that is all about just commercializing what they've done through classic designs and doing it exceptionally well. Another watch that was definitely controversial was the TAG Heuer F1. So many people were excited about these watches, and I think still are very excited. These are going to sell exceptionally, but I think there's a lot of thought around what worked in 1986 to the late 1980s and where these watches were positioned more as these attainable products. Now, when you adjust them for inflation, there is still even an excess of what maybe people expected for where these watches are positioned more around that $2,000 price range, which now makes some people question, are these delivering the same concept that they initially were created as back in the 1980s? And there's a bit of a point of separation between what the expectation is versus what they need to be for a brand like TAG Heuer in the modern day. Yes, they represent an entry point, but the entry point of TAG Heuer now compared to what they were in the 1980s are drastically two different things. The industry is drastically different, and I don't think TAG Heuer wants to lower their brand equity in offering up product that is below $1,000 or right around $1,000. I think they want to have consistency in what their product offering is and offering a product that is going to be in alignment with their larger strategy and what they're bringing forth there. So TAG is really just thinking about their general strategic vision of probably where they want things to sit. But I really like the look of these watches. I think they look fantastic. I think they did a nice job from a design point of view. It's nice to see these now in standard production, not just limited creations. But since these watches were priced more around that $200 to $300 price range back in the 1980s, I think there's a pretty big chasm of difference between what today represents versus what it was in the past. And then the single most talked about watch at the show had to be the Rolex Land-Dweller. This was a watch of many mixed points of view, points of opinion, and where people were finding appreciation of the design while others just detested it. And I saw the entire landscape of collectors and people that were in the watch industry have an opinion. Now, having an opinion about a luxury watch, and if you're a brand, you want people talking about your design. So for Rolex, this was an absolute knockout win for them because they were able to basically suck the air out of the show and have everybody talking about this single model. I think all of the leaks leading up to it and speculation about what this watch entailed also helped with the design, but you had many people on one side just not liking what this watch was. I saw PRX comments everywhere, which, pretty funny. You also saw Tissot even getting in on the action and doubling down on the joke on their social media. So this is what conversation and being able to make an impact looks like. But some people just did not like the design and what this watch is putting forth. There's just so much hype associated with a Rolex watch that you're going to see this mixing of opinions anytime they release something. In my lifetime, there has been just as many or just about as many Rolex new collections as there have been US presidents, just to give you context of how rare this is to see a new model from Rolex. But really for me and why I appreciate this watch a lot, and I'm on the side of being in favor of it, it has to be the movement. I think the movement has just been lost in the mix of what people are talking about when trying to give an honest assessment of the Land-Dweller. Even if you don't like this watch, the Land-Dweller, this is a new frontier for Rolex. Rolex is not about pushing forward all of these crazy changes all at once, but they've done this with this caliber. This is an embrace of silicon as a material, something that they have not done to this point, but even at this industrialized scale, there was a lot of questions by watchmakers. Can silicon be a component that works in escapement parts? We've seen it used in balance springs and things of that sort, but to be used in escapements at this level of scale, at this frequency, there are challenges that have come with it. Many brands have shied away from fully embracing the material, thinking that it's not ready for this at mass production. But I trust Rolex's R&D department did their due diligence in recognizing that this is the time that we can activate this and see all the upsides that are absolutely there with silicon as a material. You get the energy efficiency, you get the up magnetic resistance, you get the benefits of being able to resist shocks. But now this really is, in the 21st century, the largest leap that we have seen in industrialized watchmaking for escapements. 1999, we saw coaxial from Omega, but that was them acquiring that technology from Dr. George Daniels. This is being built from the ground up inside Rolex HQ, 10 years in the making. So this is an unbelievable feat on the mechanical side, but then on the design side, the name, there's a lot of things that people were bringing up. So split in opinion on this watch, but it created conversation, it created controversy, it created interesting dialogue from people, and I love being able to talk about this watch, bring this forward. I was obviously lucky enough to be able to see this product beforehand, so I think I'm maybe a little bit farther along in my understanding and impact that this watch could have on the industry. That said, when Rolex releases a new watch, it's going to create controversy, it's going to create questions, it's going to have people on both sides of the aisle screaming different opinions, but that's why they are the king, and that's why that they are always a brand to watch every single year. And this was a big year at that, maybe one of the biggest commercial years for a new product in their history. But all right, guys, that is my video here today, looking at some recapping thoughts around watches and wonders and the watches unveiled at the show. There were also other watches unveiled off-site at different shows, because now this time of year, it's not even just what happens at the PAL Expo in Geneva. There are many brands that release some pretty remarkable things, like Breitling with their new top times are fantastic releases. I'm gonna do a full deep dive on those. I saw a lot of independent brands unveiling some cool things like FP Journe and many others that I'm not gonna be able to mention in this video, but amazing couple of weeks being over there and a lot to take in. If you were following along and were trying to take in all of the new releases at the show, what was your single favorite watch that you saw released? Leave a comment down below. If you enjoyed this coverage, please give this video a thumbs up as well. Really do appreciate that, guys. Also subscribe. Definitely check out teddybaldisser.com. teddybaldisser.com is an authorized dealer for over 35 brands. Every purchase from our website allows us to keep doing what we're doing here. Comes with quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, and also a full factory warranty for all the products that we offer on our website. But also, if you are going to be in the Cleveland, Ohio area, whether for one of our events that I mentioned at the beginning of this video or just stopping through town, definitely stop at our boutique. We have people that are watch enthusiasts, love watches, have been with me on this journey in the early days. So if you want to stop in, we'd love to have you as well. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.